Hello, good evening, and welcome to PM Express. Tonight, we'll put the IEA's Presidential Transition Act to the test. It might so happen that we will see a transition of a Mills Mahama government to a Mahama Emis Arthur government on January 7. But if the MPP succeeds in its impending quest to hold the incoming government to the Supreme Court over the allegations of stolen verdict, the tables might turn. But until then, the president has appointed his vice president as the chairman of the transition team to oversee a smooth handing over, a move the IEA has taken on. Now, the IEA says the vice president does not have the mandate to chair this transition team. Does this mean the president has not engaged the Transition Act? One thing is also clear: the story on presidential transitions is not exactly a very friendly one. There's been acrimony, several of them that have followed transitions, and this has often left a bad taste in the mouth of several Ghanaians. Now, how would this one be managed, and what are the terms of reference? You can join us by text 1760 or post your comments on our Facebook walls, facebook.com/multi-tvworld. And if you're logged on to the internet, we're streaming live at streams.myjoyonline.com and at multitvworld.com/streams. My name is Stephen Enti, and tonight in the studio to help us with this discussion is Dr. Ransford Jampo, who is on my immediate left. He's a research fellow at IEA. And then next to him, we have the Deputy Chief of Staff, Alex Sebefia. Also, later on in the show, we'll get onto the phone lines to speak to former Chief of Staff, Kojo Mpieni, who I'm told is currently on the line. Gentlemen, it's great to have you here again.
Thank you.
Good evening to you.
As always. Now, Alex, let me start with you. Have you engaged the Transition Act?
I believe we have. First of all, good evening to your viewers as well. I think that we have tried to engage it, or we are trying to engage it. As you know, this act was passed in May of this year. It's new. Its approach is new. It's to help more or less streamline transition, which has brought lots of tensions in the past over the years. And for all intents and purposes, from where I'm standing or from where I'm sitting, we have implemented it. I think that it's important to note that there are three possible positions with transitions. The first, which is the one where there's most difficulty, is when you're handing over from one president from a political party to another president from another political party. Then there's the second scenario where you're handing over from one president in one political party to a different president in the same political party. So for example, if at the end of an 8-year term of Rawlings government, Rawlings had handed over to President Mills, had President Mills won the election, that would have been the same party but different presidents.
Yeah.
Or Kufuor to Akufo-Addo had Akufo-Addo won in 2008.
That is one scenario.
That's one scenario. That's the second scenario.
Second scenario.
The third scenario is when the same president is handing over more or less to himself. He's doing a second term. And the Act actually makes specific provision for that scenario. Because if you look at the Act and you go to section 1.3, notwithstanding the fact that the transition team is set out clearly in section 181, section 2, section 3 says, where the incumbent president is re-elected for a second term, the president shall designate members of the transition team. It almost gives him carte blanche. Because in the preceding statement, section 1, it says incumbent president shall appoint this person in, and then the other president who is coming in shall appoint this person in. It tells you the ratios, who should be part and parcel. But it is the only section that makes reference to the point where it's the same president who is incumbent who is coming back in. And it says there, he shall appoint, designate members of the transition team. it is almost carte blanche. It's almost like he has a license which is not tied down by any of the other issues that pertain.
Without a limit, kind of.
Exactly. And I think that is the section that a lot of people or wish to challenge or feel that there are issues around, and to the extent to which who should be chair or who should not be chair.
Yeah.
But if he has carte blanche, actually the Act says in other scenarios that the incumbent president and the person elected as president shall be the co-chairpersons of the team. So in terms of who should be chairman, the first starting point is that the president, if you had two separate presidents, the president on one side and the other side, they will be the co-chairs of the team. Here's a situation where you have one president. So he is the chair, but he has the power to delegate under Section 2A and B. But over and above that, you have Section 3. And Section 3 says he can form the team as he wishes. Basically, that's what it's saying. So if he decides that, okay, Vice President be the chair of my team, which I'm putting together, I don't see there's a problem.
Right. I will ask you further questions, but I'm told that Mr. Mpieni is on the line, and I'll ask him a few questions. Good evening, sir, and thanks for joining us.
Good evening.
You have overseen such a transition before, I mean, from one government to the other in 2004. What experiences can you share with us?
2004, it was President Kufuor to President Kufuor. And therefore, we don't have any problem. It's the same president.
Yeah, so, I mean, what...
There is a continuation.
Yeah. So what we see is...
2000, where it's there, you don't have any problem. It's just like the same person there. Something like maybe there was no election. Maybe the president may want to make some changes in the way he wants to have his administration in his second term. And therefore, you may want to make some changes in appointment of ministers and others who may help him to achieve his vision. So, strictly speaking, it's a transition, but that's not a transition which brings any problem.
But I mean...
in 2008, at the end of the election, there was that was a transition from a new president from a different party.
Yeah.
And therefore, that's where there's really what I would term a true transition.
Yeah, I mean, but Mr. Mpieni, the transition from the Kufuor administration to the Mills administration had so much acrimony. Why would you say that happened?
Well, simply because there was no understanding between the two parties. I believe the incoming administration, that's how I look at it, behave like there has been a coup d'etat where there are no rules, there are no laws. Military comes in and therefore they want to do whatever they believe they want to do. Because as we met, initially we came to some agreements as to what we wanted to do. And we all thought that that was the best way to go. You know, because there were 3 elections, if you remember, at that time. And therefore, there was really no time for transition as it's known,
right, so,
or as it's done everywhere.
Right, so...
And therefore, we agreed that, okay, the transition will continue after the swearing in of President Mills. And therefore, we all agreed that that was the way to go. But unfortunately, some elements in the incoming administration believe that where we have the power, we should decide to do whatever we wanted to do. And also, it turned from transition in the sense that the old administration is telling the new administration, this is what we did, this is where we are, and therefore we believe this is where we want to take off. Instead, it became some sort of inquisition. Why was this done? Why wasn't this done? This man has committed crime or something like that. And I remember me personally telling that if you have anything about these things, at least let's freeze the transition. You have 4 years, and if you believe somebody has done something wrong, you can prosecute the person, do your investigation and prosecute the person. But unfortunately, this could not happen.
Right. Ms. Mpianim, I'll have you hold there, and so I'll come back to the studio to engage this. So, Dr. Gyampo, I want to refer back to Ms. Mpianim's comments, about the kind of things which happened during the transition from Kufuor's government to Mills's government. Would you say that was, well, I mean, those formed the basis of the recommendations which you put in and subsequently leading to the bill, the act we have now?
Well, not only that, but I think we took a look at the transition, as far back as in 2000. And I think before then, the Institute had conducted a study that said that we were so much polarized, as a nation, and it was important that we look at the factors accounting for the polarization of our body politic. And one factor was the way and manner the transition, of the 2000, was done. And it was bedeviled with a lot of rancor, tension, acrimony, and, what have you. And so we thought it was not the best because those who lost elections felt that they had been, eliminated from the governance process, and they were held before courts, and you have seizures of assets in an uncoordinated manner, and so many things happened that at the end of the day, created some form of enmity and, polarization within the body politic. And again, moving forward, 2008, as Kojo Mpianim is also saying, I mean, there were so many things that happened that we felt that, look, as we forge forward, as a nation, as we fight poverty and underdevelopment, we cannot do so, if we don't have national cohesion. And so it is important that we have a blueprint like this that will serve to guide future transition to ensure, orderliness and, smooth, way of doing things. And so that informed the idea behind, putting this bill together that has, gotten its way.
But generally, I mean, the bill came from work that you put together. So generally, you were satisfied with the nature and status of the act currently.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if it is going to be followed religiously, I believe future transitions would be smooth, and there wouldn't be rancor, tension, and acrimony.
Okay. Yeah. So Mr. Segbefia, tell me what considerations, I beg your pardon, went into selecting the team.
Well, notwithstanding Section 3, which I've mentioned, we still try to abide strictly or as closely to the parameters. So you have statutory members, which the Act prescribes, namely the incumbent president, the chief of staff, the attorney general, ministers for finance, interior, defense, foreign affairs, local government, national security, and also the head of the civil service and head of the public service are statutory members of the team. Had there been an incoming president, a different president coming in, that person would also be part of a team. If he came from a different political party, he would also be allowed to bring people who were going to mirror the positions of members in equivalent numbers of the ones that I have mentioned as statutory members. So that is what the law states. It then gives the incumbent president also the right to add a number of people as well to the team if need be. And in this instance, I think a number of people have been added. I suspect even Nana Oyelita maybe is on this thing, some chiefs, some prominent persons. And then it goes further to have an advisory council, which is chaired by the Speaker of Parliament, to enable that the full team to be set up. It also allows it then to form subcommittees, and it specifies the main areas of subcommittees that are required under Section 4. So you have a team for inauguration, an inauguration subcommittee, and that's supposed to deal with the inauguration of the president on the 7th. You then have a government machinery subcommittee which deals with the handing over of the new administration from one to the other. And then you have a presidency subcommittee which will ensure the early transit of the official assets and so on and so forth. And then it also has a carte blanche of any other subcommittee which the team feels is necessary. They also have the ability to set up. So that basically is the format of the composition of the team in terms of the transition team. On what has been said, I think that transitions have gotten better each time we've had them. 2000, there was absolutely no rules or regulations at all. By the time we got to 2008, the IEA had done some work and they had put together what was then a bill. It wasn't yet law. So when
it acted mainly as a guide,
as a blueprint,
it just acted as a guide for us in 2008. So for example, this rule of you cannot move anybody out of their premises for 3 months was implemented, whereas in 2000, within a week or a couple of days, actually, people were just theft out of their premises. But the 3-month rule was applied in 2008. The difficulty in areas of assets predominantly was vehicles, and the way people were dealing with vehicles in 2000, in 2008, and then the IEA, and then it was all about mistrust. The mistrust between the parties, which I think Mr. Impieni was trying to. Both parties had a lot of mistrust, and therefore, having a cohesion was a problem. That mistrust existed in 2000 and also in 2008, and the Act is supposed to help facilitate and make sure that this mistrust is fizzled to a point where it can be managed.
Okay,
so let me make a few observations. It is important for us to make this clear that we applaud the fact that this transition is going to be guided or is being guided by the Act of Parliament, and we as an institute are very happy about that. He made reference to a section of the Act that says that if the incumbent president is re-elected, then he designates members of the committee. And our problem is that we have the committee being chaired by the vice president. And I think this is an unnecessary usurpation of the powers of the administrator general. The bill is a whole bill.
The Act.
And the Act is a whole Act. And so if we want to implement it, let us move away from selective implementation. I'm surprised nobody is talking about the role of the administrator general.
What is the role of the administrator general?
This is an independent, position or body appointed. We are told the person was appointed somewhere around November 9th, and he is supposed to take inventory, first of all, register national assets and lands and all property that belongs to the state, take inventory of them, make sure that handing over, he is a repository or he receives handing over notes and makes them available to those who may be coming in. And indeed, he goes on to recommend budgetary allocation for the purpose of ensuring a smooth transfer of power from one regime or one leader to the other and other. And we feel that such an independent person should chair. Okay, if you look at the idea behind we having an administrator general, he should chair the transition team that has been constituted and not the vice president.
So what do you think that
it is an unnecessary usurpation of the powers
appointment of the vice president by the president?
The president could designate members of the committee, but not who heads. Because you need an independent person, because it is not the vice president.
So what's the IEA's fears over the vice president?
It's not about fear. It's about
or concern.
No, it's about creating institutions and empowering them to work. You don't create institutions and then just leave them there. Nobody is talking about the administrator general. And yet, when the vice president was asking that handing over notes should be repaired, he is not supposed to be receiving those handing over notes. And he does not call for those handing over notes per the law. So if we want to implement it, then let's go strictly according to it. That's what we say.
Mr. Segwefia, your reaction?
I think that, much as I understand, have sympathies for his viewpoint, as far as I'm reading the law, that is not the case. And people should have looked maybe a little bit closer at what was the law. Because once it comes out in the act, that is the law. Even your intentions, if you don't put it right in proper, you don't write it correctly, you will not be applying the law. And the law makes it clear that the incumbent president and the president-elect shall be co-chairs of the team. At no point is it said that, assuming this was a handover even from one president to another, which is the more serious situation, it does not envisage in that scenario that the, what's it called, the gentleman who is the, the Administrator General is the chair.
Yeah.
The Administrator General is not mentioned as the chair in this act.
Delegated any chairmanship
The
powers.
president and the incoming president are co-chairs.
But in this regard, the president is not a chair.
But that is why
regime to the other.
Exactly. So then the question I ask is this: if you have a situation where it's the same president, at what point, why should the Administrator General actually have more powers than the point where you need Administrator General is when there are two different parties or two different people involved.
No,
then you need a referee.
I completely disagree with that, because there should be handing over notes. And there should be somebody who must take inventory of state assets.
Then in this case,
there should be somebody who must take stock of what belongs to the state.
So let me ask a question.
Is that the vice president who's going to do that?
Let me ask a question. If this was another president to another president, who would have been the chairpersons?
Who would have been the chairpersons?
Well, the president.
The act itself clearly states.
It's the president.
So if, for example, the NDC was handing over to Nana Akufo-Addo, then Nana Akufo-Addo and John Mahama
would have
become co-chairs.
So it is always envisaged
now
that the presidents are the chairpersons of this transition team. That is what the act is telling us.
No, but let's fast forward to the position of the Administrator General. You are not reading that.
But the position of the Administrator General is in Section 8.2.
Yeah.
It says in Section 8 that the president, Section 8.1, the act says that we will create a presidential estate unit. Now, the presidential estate unit is dealing with assets. Those assets are to be controlled. The president shall be under an Administrator General who shall be appointed by the president in consultation with the Council of State.
Yeah.
The Administrator General shall have the same terms and conditions as a Justice of the Court of Appeal. Administrator shall make recommendations to the president in consonance with Article 179 of the Constitution for budgetary allocations for the purposes of the transfer of the reins of government from one administration to the next. Operative there, he shall make recommendations to who? To the president. Okay. The presidential estate is responsible for the procurement of any assets of properties of government, which are assets and properties not vested in the Lands Commission. The administration shall, in procuring assets, comply with the provisions of the Procurement Act. So basically, inventory of assets, Administrator General shall prepare a national register, shall conduct a stock-taking exercise before and give an access of the president and vice president and ministers of state. So he has a whole function to deal with assets.
So basically your position, and I reckon that's government's position, is that there is no usurping of the powers of the Administrator General by the appointment of the vice president as chairman.
So what has he been doing all this while? He was appointed somewhere around November 9th.
He's dealing with assets. He's ensuring that the assets, what government owns or what, preparing a register, making sure that whatever transition is now going to take place.
The vice president has called on ministers, heads of ministries, departments and agencies to submit their handing over notes. And I'm saying that call should be made by the Administrator General because he receives them, okay, not the vice president. He receives those handing over notes and makes them available to those who may be coming in. And so I don't see why.
Gentlemen, I still have Kujum Pieni on the line. I know that the transition act was not implemented during their tenure, but he could share a few ideas about what he thinks the way forward should be. So, Mr. Pianim, you've heard the arguments, the various arguments of whether the appointment of the vice president by the president to be the chair of the transition team is usurping the powers of the Administrator General. Is that how you feel? And do you think that by the appointment of the Vice President, there is too much executive interference in the transition process?
Well, we're strictly by the law. And if you want to give powers to the Administrator General, as stated in the strictly speaking, you should let him do the work. It shouldn't be the Vice President. Assuming you have a situation where you're moving from one party to another party, who should do it? The incoming Vice President who has not been sworn in, which strictly speaking is not a Vice President, or the outgoing Vice President who is just about to leave office. I think to avoid this, and that's why the what do you call it? The
Administrator General.
The Administrator General position was created.
To avoid this situation. I myself have some reservations about some of the powers given to the Administrator General, especially with regards to access of the seats. But I think I was given opportunity to attend meetings, which unfortunately I couldn't. So it'd be wrong for me at this time to come and criticize it. It wouldn't be proper for me to do that.
Yeah.
But if Administrator General is the one who has to do the work, then let him do it. It shouldn't be any Vice President, because, as I stated earlier, an outgoing Vice President has no business trying to determine what the incoming Vice President should do, or incoming government should do.
Yeah, but in this instance, if it is the same person, then I reckon that there won't be much concerns there, right?
That's what I stated earlier. That strictly speaking,
exactly.
I don't see it as a transition. I mean,
exactly.
Transition, as I understand it from other jurisdictions or other countries, is when we moving away from, when there's a proper change from one administration to another administration, then you have a transition. Then you have to tell the incoming administration what you believe where you are, to hand over to that administration, to let them know what you have been doing, where you are, and for them to determine whether they want to follow what you were doing or they have to change course. Even if they have to change course, at least they must be made aware as to what you have done up to the time they are coming in. That, I believe, is truly a transition. But if you have a transition, you have of the same president, I don't know. Maybe the lawyers may have it, but I don't believe that it's truly a transition. And anyway, in all these laws, what all of us should understand is that our own attitude and our own understanding is better than any laws which have been put up. Because it's good to have laws to help us to determine what one should do. There's no doubt about that. But if the political class itself does not trust itself, there's that acrimony, as you were saying, we regard ourselves as enemies. You can put all the best laws on paper, and then you will not be able to achieve anything. So I personally believe that the first task for all of us is that the political class should understand itself to the extent that moving from one government to another government is not something. Or let me put it this way: we are not enemies.
Yes.
Once we believe that we are not enemies, and once you have political parties, there are bound to be changes, and therefore, when there's a change, you must accept there's a change, and therefore, if you think about the country first, and therefore, whoever is coming in, you let the one coming in know where you are. Then we're able to achieve something. If that understanding is not there, we can put up the best laws in the world. it may not help us.
Thank you very much,
I
Mr.
would advise that we should understand ourselves first.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Mpiani. We'll still have you hold, and when we have to come back to you, we will. So, gentlemen, yes.
Can I just point out? You see,
yes.
For me, it's very simple. In the more difficult scenario, which we've all alluded to, this is why I said my sympathies are with him. Perhaps they have to go back and look for an amendment to the law. But as the law stands, in even the more difficult scenario, it's the president's outgoing and incoming that are the chair people. It is clearly stated there who is chairing. And Section 3 even gives powers over and beyond anything that has been stipulated to someone who is being re-elected for a second term. It says it clearly. Where the incumbent president is re-elected for a second term, the president shall designate members of the transition team. He is not even compelled necessarily to follow those that have been designated. And that's why I said that once it's in law, the only point of interpretation finally is the Supreme Court, or the court of the law.
Dr. Janko, you think otherwise?
Well, I don't think we have to go to court over this.
Not at this
what
stage.
about the amendment?
Not at this stage.
Perhaps consider amending.
I don't really agree with him. I still maintain that what is happening now is an unnecessary reception of the powers of the Administrator General. And I keep wondering, why is it that nobody is mentioning this all-important official who is supposed to be an independent person? Okay, the vice president-elect is yet to be sworn in, and he hasn't got the power to call for handing over notes. Okay, and so he gives out orders that people should give handing over notes. Then why are we, the bill is now being implemented, but we quickly want to push the role and position of the Administrator General into oblivion. I think it's absolutely unacceptable. And we should, if we really want to implement it,
I'll take a short break.
If this law will have to guide our transition, it should be implemented to the letter, and we shouldn't be selective.
Right, so the IEA thinks that the law should be implemented to the latter and not being selective. We'll return and we're talking transition. We've spoken about the roles of the Administrator General and the IEA's position that the Vice President has absolutely no mandate to become the chair of the transition team, because that's not what is prescribed in the law. So Mr. Mpiani is still on the line. So Mr. Mpiani, I would like to wrap up with you, really. I mean, you have been in a transition from one government to yourselves, kind of. And then you were also there when your government transferred power to another government. Now, looking at these two experiences, how would you say we should approach this transition so that way forward we can perfect it?
Which transition?
I'm saying that you have experienced transitions where the Kufuor government transferred power to itself, and then the Kufuor government transferred power to the NDC. So I'm saying that with these experiences, how would you say the current transition should be conducted so that moving forward, the whole transition arrangements will be perfected?
I wish I could give you, but I have a little problem with what you call the current transition. I belong to a party which believes that there should be no transition at this time.
Well, I understand your position. That the MPP is contesting whether the president has the legal mandate to be president.
That's very, very true. So I don't know whether it's transition from the current government to
your
candidate.
Yes, that's right.
So
tell me.
I'll be extremely grateful if you
I understand perfectly. Yes. But let me ask you finally before you go. So does it mean that your party does not recognize this transition team, because as far as you know, your candidate should be the co-chair, really, because you believe that he won?
So far as my party is concerned, we believe there is something so seriously wrong with the whole elections, and the party has decided to go to court to challenge it.
You think the transition arrangement should stop?
I believe so.
Would you go to court?
If we go to, yes, we'll go to court.
You go to court to stop the transition?
No, please. Don't put words in my mouth. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
We'll go to court to challenge the Electoral Commission on his and not to stop whatever transition is going on.
All right, then. So thank you very much, Mr. Mpianin, for your time. It's been great speaking with you.
You're welcome.
Right.
You're
So.
welcome.
Thank you. So, gentlemen, we're back to the studio. Mr. Mpianin's position is clear that his party still does not believe that the mandate of the president is correct because of the stolen verdict allegation the party is making. But, well, here we have a transition.
Well, I think let me just make a comment on that. You know, even in law, you have to maintain this a particular status till your situation is changed by the courts.
Till the law says.
And therefore, I don't think he should have had any difficulty commenting on what the situation is now, even if he's being challenged in court. The Bawku MP was in parliament till it was decided that he had been convicted and taken. Whilst the case was in court, he was in parliament.
Still a parliamentarian.
So we took him as a parliamentarian till he was found guilty, and then the matter was reversed.
Right.
So there should have been no difficulty actually in commenting on what we know. The Electoral Commission has declared the NDC as winners. We are told that they are going to take the matter to court. That is their prerogative. But at the moment, the status quo or the situation must continue. It's fluid.
Right.
It's a dynamic situation. So
So,
but
Mr.
on the more
Secretary,
serious point of your vice president,
this thing. Let's wrap up on that.
The act is very clear.
We'll move to other aspects.
The act is very clear.
The act, yeah.
At no point is, or should I say, there is a specific mention of who should be chairs and co-chairs in this act, and it's the president, even in a more difficult scenario. And at any point, I would have thought their argument was the vice president shouldn't be because it's designated that the president should be.
Nobody's going to make that argument because it is.
Because
you have
Section
specific
3
instances where the president, would be chairing.
But Section 3 says
that is not what we're talking about
the
here.
incumbent president can put his team together, because as even Mr. Mpianin conceded, he doesn't even consider a handover from the same president to the same president as a transition. But it's a process. It is a transition because as of the 7th of January, everybody, even the act says it, becomes unemployed. The president must now employ new people. Even though he's the same person, he must now designate his ministers, and they will go through vetting. There's case law on that. J.H. Mensah versus the Attorney General made it clear that every administration, every minister must be vetted again.
Are you hoping to maintain your position as Deputy Chief of Staff then?
How nice of you
in the new administration.
to put me on the spot in front of live camera as to whether I'm hoping to be this or that or the other. No comment.
It's a few days ahead.
Absolutely no comment on that.
Right,
matter.
but you're certain that you will play a critical role in
it is the prerogative.
Presidency.
You can never. This is politics.
You could be out of a job.
You can be out of a job within even 1 week of being appointed because it's an appointment. So you go with the flow and you make sure that you are in a position where you can serve your country if you're required, and if you're not required, you can do other things.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't put yourself in that position where you're hell-bent on knowing that this is mine or I'm going for that.
So your position finally is that this is okay. There is nothing illegal or nothing misplaced with the vice president being the chair of the transition team. Perfectly legal.
I don't think there's any problem at all, because as far as I'm concerned, under Section 3, he has carte blanche. The president could have even decided that, yes, I'll make the chairperson the administrator general as he wishes. He could decide no. And I should make the last very important point, which I made off air. We have an executive presidency, and it is not normally the case in any situation I've seen where a president is involved and somebody has more powers than that president. That is why once the president and the president-elect are there, they are given co-chair status. Co-chair because they are there. They are executive presidents, one coming in, one going out. They chair. The functions and how the machine works is left with the administrator general. Yes,
Dr. Jampo, you disagree. Let's wrap this up quickly so we can use the final few minutes to discuss other aspects.
That we insist that the right thing must be done. If we want to use the law to guide whatever is going on, we shouldn't be selective. Again, the concentration of attention or efforts on an advisory council that has also been appointed. I mean, why are we thinking about advisory council and not hyping the opposition of the Administrator General? The advisory council serves as an organ that resolves conflict. If you are trying to hand over power from one democratically elected leader to the other, and that transition is bedeviled with challenges or conflict, the advisory council comes in here. Under the current circumstance, I mean, I don't see the kind of conflict that you would have an advisory council coming in to resolve. Moving forward, I think the bill also talks about other important things that we are trying to lose sight of. The one key provision in the law, sorry, not the bill, the law, is when we would have to select our Speaker of Parliament and then swear in members of Parliament. The law says it should be 2 days or 48 hours before January 7th. And this is meant to deal with the protocol lapses and the challenges regarding delays that is often characterized, that has often characterized our, inauguration of the president. I believe you remember somewhere around 2004, there was this haggling between who becomes the Speaker of Parliament. It was between Sechi Hughes and the late Alajiti, and it delayed, it dragged, and people had thrown to the Independence Square expecting their president to be sworn in, and MPs were also doing their own thing there, and I think it created a lot of, tension and then protocol lapses, and a lot of time was delayed. And so we are saying this time, bring those events forward at least 48 hours before the swearing in of the president takes place. And I think it's also must be discussed.
And so what other sections do you think?
I think basically these are the three main sections.
What about the timeline, the limit for which the transition transition process should finish?
I think the law itself makes provision for that, but it's about if it's going to be from one leader to the other. I think, as Mr. Mpini said, I mean, it can be documented, black and white. But if those people discussing, have consensus and they agree amongst themselves, I mean, it can be, at any shortest possible time.
So,
but if it's going to drag, if you don't have consensus, and like when we didn't have a blueprint guiding us, people could just decide not to go for meetings again and all that, and so then acrimony and tension ensues and all that. But if we understand ourselves, I mean, I don't think
I think it's important to note that under Section 14, once they swear the president in, all the people who were designated under Section 1 cease to have a job.
So yeah, talking about cease to have a job.
Yes.
Where would the transition team members draw allowances and salaries from? Are they supposed to be paid?
That to be dealt with by the Administrator General.
Prescribed
Administrator General makes recommendations as to the funds that would have to be.
But right now we wouldn't know how much each member.
And so if the Administrator General is working, I believe by this time he's fashioning all these things into his work. And so I'm sure with this discussion going on, the current Deputy Chief of Staff should
be able to tell us how much each member of the team should.
Yeah, he should be working, because he's supposed to be.
Well, they've only had the first meeting today, so all those things are now going to be looked at in terms of what.
And that meeting was behind.
But is Administrator General taking inventory of what is there?
I don't know. I cannot speak.
Today's meeting was behind closed doors.
Yes.
So all the transition meetings will be behind closed doors.
Well, I believe so, but I don't know. And it really, in this particular case, like I said, you have 3 different scenarios. And in this particular case, I don't necessarily think that much is going to be won or lost, whether it's open or not, in that regard.
Right, so I have a couple of messages. I would try very hard to read all of them. This one coming from Simon in Wale Wale. He says, the president has begun engaging in constitutional stumbles and doubt if he can indeed manage this country of ours. Well, that's your opinion, Simon. And then Yeboah from Winchi, Francis Yeboah Winchi, says, justice and peace is all we want as Ghanaians. God bless Ghana. And then Asari Mate from Odumasi Krobo says, going to court by the MPP is the best way to seek redress. Let's not see them as warmongers. Well, thank you very much. Simon again says, the Deputy Chief of Staff is a propagandist and I don't trust him. I don't know on what basis you're saying that, because tonight, as far as I know, we've discussed the details of the transition bill and, well, very less propaganda from my opinion. And then this one from Peter Tewia from Takrady says, Honorable Nana Addo should proceed to the Supreme Court for his retirement verdict. After that, he should give way to Alan Chemanting, the youth friend. Well, that's your opinion also. And then PK from Atiko says, Nana, you don't have to blame everybody. Anybody, Sir John and Kennedy Japan, they are those who helped you lose. Well, that's your opinion. And then Alex from La Paz says MPP should stop the noise and cheating does not bring peace. This is from Seth Medina. We've not been discussing all these, but they've all come through. And Joe Joseph Banye from Wasa, Steve, I have decided to use this moment to express how happy I was when you read my message. I wish to see you in Wa one of these days to welcome you with a guinea fowl. Well, thank you very much, Joe Banye. I'll take you on that offer when I'm next in Wa.
I better come and do your job.
Yes. And Simon from Wale Wale says, Mr. Alex should give us a break and allow the IEA rep to educate us, for this is not propaganda. Simon, you sent 3 messages as I've seen on my lineup. And then this one from Kenneth Oforitechi. He says, no comment because Nana Addo is my president. And then this one from Baron de Remix says, Nana, we are waiting. Our president now is Nana. And Benjamin Bonti says, I wonder why the president who has been in parliament before can walk over the Transitional Act and take his own path. Is that not another way of promoting illegality and taking corruption to the highest level? Ghanaians deserve extremely better. That's Benjamin Bonte. I'll give you a quick reaction to that. That he feels that the president is walking a path of illegality for, you know.
Well, I mean, I've made it quite clear that that is not the case at all. In actual fact, for those who have an extreme reading of Section 3, he could have appointed who he wanted, but he's followed the statutory requirements under the Act, and that what he has felt is the best. He hasn't touched any position. He's brought in others, even from civil society, to be part of the team. I think that actually he should be commended.
Right, okay. So Jurgen Inze says, they seem to be in a hurry in doing things which are unnecessary. Muhammad seems to have blocked his ears as if he does not know that there is heat and
Can
tension.
I just respond that the transition team, the access within 24 hours after the declaration of results, the presidential election, according to the incumbent shall appoint. So the transition team has to be formed technically within 24 hours. Once the results is given, 24 hours. So there's a time limit. We are not rushing to form it because we want to.
Yeah.
The law says we should.
Okay. So please tell me the dates that the MPP is going to court. This is from, I can't tell you that. We're waiting for the MPP to tell us that. That's from Jacob from Takrady. And then Al-Haji Shiraz Tamale says, Mr. Jampo, leave the president to exercise his mandate. And Akoto Razak from Tamale says, good evening, Honorable Alex. What's wrong with the vice president being a chairperson of the transition team? Watch IEA critically. They are not just private. They should stop confusing themselves. I'll give you that reaction, Dr. Jampo. Are you compromised in any way?
Well, I think, Ghanaians are the best judges in this regard. We have asserted our independence. We've worked with all the parties, and over the years, I think we've assert our credibility. And
Right.
Alex here will tell you.
Okay, so Baba Musa from Tamale says, Honorable Alex, I hope to meet you someday soon. I admire you so much. God bless you. And this one also from Dave Begro says, the IEA man should be decorous in his language. His posturing is not inspiring because he's not familiar with the law. It's not his opinion or wishes, it is the law. This comes from Dave Begro. Well, I'm sorry I can't take all your messages. Thank you very much for sending them. So, quick one, Mr. Segbefia.
Well,
I have to respond to that.
Yes, so you respond to that.
Yeah, a quick response. We are not dealing with opinions here. We are talking about what the law says. And so our viewers should also pay attention to what we say. And it's not about emotions. It's about saying the things, as they are.
Yeah.
And I think that is all we are seeking to do. We're saying that if the law must be implemented, then it must be implemented in full. Otherwise, any other selectivity would be interpreted to mean, a facade. I mean, we are not really committed to it. Let us not concentrate attention on issues that really do not matter. We wouldn't really make any difference. Appointment of an advisory council to resolve conflict. We are not anticipating any conflict under this circumstance, for instance. But we expect that you have this independent officer, the office or the position of this independent body called Administrator General being made operational, and it is not enough to create institutions and then have them exist in name. Let us make them work.
Mr. Segbefia, I know that when I was reading the messages, it kept coming that Nana Addo is my president, Nana Addo is my president. So, I mean, you spoke about allowing the status quo to continue until such a time that the case in court, well, if it ever goes to court, has been determined. Do you anticipate that there could be a snag in the transition process? For example, if the Supreme Court rules in favor of Nana Akufo-Addo?
No. It's not something I'm even prepared to discuss. One, I'm a lawyer. I want to see what evidence they're talking about. Then I'll comment. At the moment, I know what the processes and procedure are before Afari-Gyan appends his signature to a final piece of paper. There are almost 3-4 signatures that must be put on piece of paper. And even in the strong room, when the thing comes through, each representative from every political party is given the chance to ring, check with your people, and then they sign before it goes to Afari-Gyan. So I'm just intrigued. I just want to find, there's lots of things being said. We must see the evidence, and then we will know whether there is a case or there isn't a case. And it's a legal matter, so all this talk, and it's not going to take anybody anywhere. It's all trying to judge things in the court of public opinion, which we are very good at doing. But at the end of the day, things, when they get to the court of law, as we saw with Amina Yutong, it becomes a different ballgame. So let them bring the evidence, we'll all hear it, we'll all digest it and see what it is. Till then, the status quo must be maintained. And I've given you a clear example of the Boko MP's issue. We have been adjudged winners of a contest. There's a proper procedure to follow. A lot of the things that are happening are very unfortunate and don't help us as a country. And now I'm speaking as a Ghanaian, not NDC or MPP. This is not the way. We have got a fantastic reputation, and we must try and maintain it in the international community and in the African sub-region. What is happening now and some of the things is just unfortunate. But coming back to the
transition,
as far as I'm concerned, it happens a lot. What people intend to do and what they do sometimes, or a lot of times, are different. Perhaps when the IEA was formulating the document, they intended the Administrator General to have a particular function. This document does not give him that function. Excuse me to say. He can do all the work that is being said, but he does it under chairmen who are deemed to be the president and a co-president, incoming or outgoing. And there's even a particular provision in there for a situation where the president is handing over to himself, more or less, and he's giving carte blanche. I know what they are saying. I have sympathies with it. But as far as I'm concerned, the law does not give them that mandate.
Right, thank you very much, gentlemen. Dr. Ransford Jampo is a research fellow at the IEA, and Alex Segbafia is Deputy Chief of Staff. We're also joined on the line by Kojo Mpianim, former Chief of Staff. My name is Stephen Anti, and thanks for sending in your messages. Join us again on Monday for another interesting edition of PM Express. Good night.